Chapter 2 has 3 parts. This is part 3 of 3. After discussing samples and addressing validity and reliability concerns, it is time to select an appropriate research design for our research project. In order to complete this task, we must first determine the differences between research methods and designs to examine some of the more common research designs. Research methods are generalized and established ways of approaching research questions. For example, there is the qualitative method, which covers large numbers but provides limited details. And on the other hand, there's the quantitative method, which covers smaller numbers but provides more detail. It's important to note that not all methods can be applied to all research questions. With this in mind, we have learned that the choice of method is generally limited by the area of research that you wish to explore. In comparison to the research method, research design involves determining how your chosen method will be applied to answer your research question. The design of your study can be thought of as a blueprint detailing what will be done and how this will be accomplished. Key aspects of research design include research methodology, participant sample collection, and assignment if different conditions are being explored, and data collection procedures and instruments. The most common research design is the survey, which typically is presented in the form of an interview or questionnaire. The results of surveys provide information about how people think and act. When researchers prepare to conduct a survey, they must first look at developing a representative sample and creating a questionnaire that will provide the means to accurate responses from each participant to each question. There are 2 main surveys that researchers use for retrieving data. An interview is typically conducted through face-to-face meetings, telephone conversations, or online communications between the researcher and the participant. The other type of survey is a questionnaire, which consists of a distributed, printed, or written form in order to obtain information from the participant. Each type of survey have their advantages, with the interview obtaining a higher response rate due to subjects finding it more difficult to turn down the request in comparison to receiving a questionnaire through the mail. Interviews have an opportunity to explore a participant's underlying feelings and reasons to a response, while questionnaires have the advantage of being cheaper and covering a larger sample. The most common form of qualitative research, remember it's the research design that studies smaller, more intimate interactions, providing more in-depth details, is known as ethnography. Researchers that participate in this type of research are referred to as doing field work. The research team participates in a research style referred to as observation, where they actively observed and even at times become intricately involved with the population they study. This type of study is ideal for researchers wanting to capture the most accurate picture of a population of interest. However, there are challenges that are as significant as the benefits. Building trusting relationships within the population studied can take a long time to develop. Due to the researchers at risk of becoming attached, which can lead to a higher likelihood of personal bias, being exposed to risky lifestyles, and keeping the project operational due to long-term costs. Experiments are a chosen research design when studying a cause and effect relationship. An experiment is simply an artificially created situation that allows a researcher to manipulate or control the variables being studied. A classic experiment typically involves a selection of two groups due to their similar characteristics. The groups are assigned to be either the experimental group, which is exposed to the independent variable, the variable that can cause or provoke a change, or the control group that is not exposed to the independent variable. An example could be groups that are being studied due to a new type of headache remedy. The experimental group would receive the drug while the control group would receive a placebo, a pill that has no medicinal purposes. By conducting this type of experiment, the Hawthorne effect, which refers to the unintended influences that observers can have on their subjects, is limited, thus providing the opportunity of valid, reliable, and consistent data. The use of existing sources will be our last reviewed research design. The term secondary analysis refers to a variety of research techniques that make use of previously collected and publicly accessible information and data. A common feature of information retrieved through secondary analysis is the differences of intentions from one study to the next. An example would be the use of information retrieved from a census, which is typically used for government purposes, but could also be used by another study exploring social needs for a low-cost health clinic, or for marketing purposes, or even for a new business venture. We are on the verge of creating all the necessary parts to our research project. We have defined a problem, created operational definitions, completed a thorough literature review, developed a hypothesis, and selected and utilized an appropriate research design to collect the data. Our last step in this process is in developing the conclusion. It's important to refer back to the purpose or objective of the scientific method member when providing a research conclusion, which is not aimed to answer all questions that can be raised about a particular subject, but rather as a means to report findings of a study that represents an end and a beginning. The ending merely represents a specific phase of the exploration of a phenomena being completed, but in return, the results should generate or open doorways to ideas for future study. The conclusion of our research study supports that there is a positive correlation between educational levels and earning levels. Our results reveal the higher a person's educational level is, the more a person's income increases. In other words, a person earning an associate's degree earns more than a person with a high school degree. A person with a bachelor's degree earns more than a person with an associate's, and so on, with a person earning a graduate degree earning the highest levels of income. It should be noted, after reviewing information retrieved from our literature review and questionnaire responses, the additional factors may need further studying of the correlation between a person's educational and earning opportunities. Discovered factors included the distribution of educational resources due to social class, and with a small portion of the sample revealing a negative correlation between their educational levels and earnings. Our conclusion indicates that even though our hypothesis is supported, our findings have revealed the need to be addressed in these factors in order to provide a more in-depth explanation. Our last topic covered in today's presentation discusses ethics in research. Sociologists that utilize the scientific method in their research are mandated to become familiar and adhere to certain specific standards developed by the American Sociological Association. The following basic principles of this code are as follows: maintain objectivity and integrity in research. Respect the subject's right to privacy and dignity. Protect subjects from personal harm. Preserve confidentiality. Seek informed consent when data are collected from research participants or when behavior occurs in a private context. Acknowledge research, collaboration, and assistance, and disclose all sources of financial support. There are several reasons why it's important to adhere to ethical norms in research. First, norms promote the aims of research, such as knowledge, truth, and avoidance of error. For example, prohibitions against fabricating, falsifying, or misrepresenting research data promote the truth and avoid error. Second, since research often involves a great deal of cooperation and coordination among many different people in different disciplines and institutions, ethical standards promote the values that are essential to collaborative work, such as trust, accountability, mutual respect, and fairness. For example, many ethical norms in research, such as guidelines for authorship, copyright and patenting policies, data sharing policies, and confidentiality rules in peer review, are designed to protect intellectual property interests while encouraging collaboration. Most researchers want to receive credit for their contributions and do not want to have their ideas stolen or disclosed prematurely. Third, many of the ethical norms help to ensure that researchers can be held accountable to the public. For instance, federal policies on research misconduct, conflicts of interest, the human subjects protections, and animal care and use are necessary in order to make sure that researchers who are funded by public money can be held accountable to the public. Fourth, ethical norms in research also help to build public support for research. People are more likely to fund research projects if they can trust the quality and integrity of that research. Finally, many of the norms of research promote a variety of other important moral and social values, such as social responsibility, human rights, animal welfare, compliance with the law, and health and safety. Ethical lapses in research can significantly harm human and animal subjects, students, and the public. For example, a researcher who fabricates data in a clinical trial may harm or even kill patients, and a researcher who fails to abide by regulations and guidelines relating to radiation or biological safety may jeopardize his health and the safety or health of staff and students. In closing, let's briefly summarize what was discussed in today's presentation. We discovered that research plays a significant role in the workings of a society and that its findings have the potential to provide accurate and reliable information used in decisions that range from everyday to life-changing situations. With becoming familiar with the standards of scientific research, we become more capable of recognizing information that is efficient and effective when evaluating information used in any level of decision making. We examined the 5 steps of the scientific method, which include defining the problem, reviewing the literature, formulating a hypothesis, collecting and analyzing data, and developing a conclusion. We discussed the concepts that involved operational definitions and how a hypothesis states a possible relationship between 2 or more variables. We were introduced to several sample types and their advantages and disadvantages, along with the importance of research results displaying both validity and reliability. We explored an important part of scientific research, which is devising a plan for collecting data that's called research designs. Several research designs were introduced, including interviews, questionnaires, ethnography experiments, and secondary analysis. All of these possess their own advantages and disadvantages when studying human behavior. Our last topic of the presentation focused on the Code of Ethics of the American Sociological Association, which mandates research display objectivity and integrity, confidentiality, and disclosure of all sources of financial support. This is the end of part 3 of 3. Be certain that you have viewed all 3 parts of this presentation.